everybody. Welcome to Friday Eve. I know I haven't said that in a while, but it is Friday Eve, which means Diddy's got one more day to deal with his trial just this week, and then another 7 weeks after that. Boy, if the pace continues like it was today, I don't know how anybody's going to survive this case. I mean, the details, yet again, disturbing, uncomfortable. I don't think they're good for Diddy. I think you can argue how a defense attorney can make a case, but I think the prosecutors have done some work, let me tell you. And boy, have they made short work of him in that courtroom. So Kid Cudi, if you're a rap fan, he's a rapper, and he was dating Cassie Ventura. That would be Diddy's ex-girlfriend and sometimes girlfriend at the same time. So bad blood between them, sure. But bad blood at this level ends up being a burned out Porsche and a break and enter in your home. And that's what Kid Cudi was testifying to today. What does it have to do with RICO? Plenty, because there are connections that were made in court. I'll tell you what they were. And also, an assistant testified today. It was really disturbing how much violence he saw Cassie undergoing at the hands of Diddy, and the fact that he was ordered to go and buy witch hazel, you know, to fix the swelling on her face. And yeah, use the company card. You want RICO? That's a piece of RICO right there if you're prosecutors. Also on the show tonight, the jailbreakers in New Orleans. It's a week now that they've been out on the run. And have you ever wondered how an inmate who's trying to stay gone stays gone? Like, what do they do for food? What do they do for clothes? What do they do for money? And what do they do to stay hid? Well, it turns out there's quite a formula. And although those 5 guys on the bottom were captured all within 10 miles of the actual jail, guess they didn't get too far. How far have those other 5 up top? How far have they made it? Tonight, an expert, a guy on the inside who can tell us exactly what fugitives do to stay gone. And then, remember Sherri Papini? I do. I covered that lady for too long. She was kidnapped. She was beaten. She was branded. Her hair was cropped. 2 Hispanic women held her until we all learned she was a big liar. None of that happened. There were no Hispanic women holding her. They didn't brand her. She did it to herself because she wanted to be with her boyfriend. And she up and left her kids and her husband to cheat. And then she made up the big story, you know, so that it wouldn't look so cheaty. She went to prison for that. But now she's got a brand new story, and she's telling it in a docuseries. And wouldn't you know it, once again, she's weaving a whole other yarn. She was kidnapped. She was branded, she says now. I just got a couple questions for this lady. Then why did you confess, and why did you actually tell the authorities that you did it? That's called pleading guilty. Why wouldn't you have told this news story back then? I got Perez Hilton on tonight, and he went off on this lady, Sherri Papini, and he's going to go off tonight, so don't go anywhere. Let me start here, though. Since we started covering the Diddy trial, I have poured over the RICO statute like it's a lab report. And I can tell you right now, supervillain is not one of the requisite felonies that you need to prove the case. But we got it today. And it sure got a rise out of the courtroom, too, when the rapper Kid Cudi used that term, supervillain, to describe Sean Diddy Combs. Kid Cudi's real name is Scott Mescudi, and he was pulled into Diddy's circle through Cassie Ventura, whom he says he dated in 2011 when he thought that she and Diddy were through. He says he thought that because Cassie told him that. But technically it wasn't true, or even partially true, because Cassie was still on and off with Diddy. And when Diddy found out about Kid Cudi, Cudi says all hell broke loose. He told the jurors that in December of 2011, he got a frantic call from a Diddy staff member who said she was parked outside of Kid Cudi's house and said, "Diddy's inside. He broke into your house with one of our other associates." The staffer claimed that she had been, quote, forced to go along with them, end quote. Forced labor. That's part of RICO. Don't ask me why I'm whispering, but it seems as though everybody wants to whisper that quiet part. I think it should be said out loud. Kid Cudi later discovered that his security cameras had been tampered with, that his dog had been locked in a bathroom, and that the Christmas gifts that he'd bought for friends and family were all unwrapped on the counter. Cudi and Cassie broke up shortly after that. But a few weeks later, Cudi got a call from his dog walker, informing him that his Porsche 911 was currently on fire in the driveway. A Molotov cocktail had been tossed into it, and jurors saw the aftermath, the pictures, these ones you're looking at right now. That's what was handed around to the jury. That's a convertible roof that Cudi says somebody had obviously cut to throw the Molotov cocktail in. And yeah, he said right away he confronted Diddy the very next day because Diddy had actually threatened that he was going to blow up his car just a few weeks prior. But an unusually calm and collected Diddy, he said, replied, "What are you talking about?" As Cudi described it, Diddy was, quote, staring out the window with his hands behind his back like a Marvel supervillain. Cudi testified he didn't believe a word of what Diddy was saying. But even that wasn't the most over-the-top testimony today. Former Diddy assistant George Kaplan was reluctantly back on the stand this morning. He did not want to testify. They had to give him immunity to do so. He was going to plead the fifth. But he said at one point he thought his boss was, quote, a god among men. He said he still sends Diddy happy birthday texts every year, even after the violence and the coercion and the lawlessness he said he witnessed. And he said it's the reason he quit. Today, he said his job included buying witch hazel to fix the swelling from the injuries to Cassie's face after seeing Diddy assaulting her. He also said he saw Diddy throwing apples at another girlfriend while she shielded her face, all of which disturbed him so much, he said that was it. He was out. He wanted to quit, even though he was too afraid to tell Diddy that was the reason. He said it was an illness in the family instead. NewsNation senior national correspondent Laura Ingle joins me now with much, much more. Laura, it is like a movie. Being in that courtroom and listening to this testimony and seeing, witness after witness tell these stories. So let me know a little bit about the vibe between Kid Cudi and Diddy, because I kind of feel like there's going to be a diss track or some kind of rap song written about this. I just can't imagine it was very good.
You know what, Ash, that is a perfect way of saying it. And as you were reading that, I was thinking it really does feel like we are watching a movie unfold. And in terms of Kid Cudi coming into the court today, there was no stare down, as you might expect from inside of the courtroom. But man, when Kid Cudi walked out of the car in front of the courthouse, I mean, that really looked like something out of a movie, because he was already smoking a cigarette. He was wearing a black leather jacket. He had kind of this James Dean vibe as he was walking into the courthouse. He didn't answer any questions going in or out, but once on the stand, he was asked. He was actually very calm. He was, again, there was no stare down between him and Sean Combs, but he was asked about his relationship with Cassie Ventura, and that's where he was talking about, they kind of cut to the chase and talked about when he got this phone call from Cassie in 2011, where she said she sounded really scared and said, Sean Combs has found out about us dating, and she was worried. So he goes to pick her up, takes her to a hotel for everybody's safety. Then that's when he gets a phone call from that assistant and says, Sean Combs is in your house right now, he says. What? He leaves the hotel. He starts driving over to his house, calls Sean Combs on the phone because he has his number, and says, and I quote, "Mother effer, you in my house?" And by the time Kid Cudi gets to his house, nobody's there. And that's where he finds his dog locked up in the bathroom. He finds Christmas presents that are all unwrapped over the house. And he's looking for him. And then he realizes, I don't know what this guy is capable of. Maybe I should call the police. He starts to tell the court and the jurors that he's worried about violence. That's when the defense objects to this line of questioning and what he's about to say. And they ask for a sidebar. And in that sidebar conversation, we hear the defense ask for a mistrial in that moment because of what they think he's about to say. They think he's going to be describing something about murder and about violence. It was dismissed. They moved on. But a very dramatic day in court as we hear about the, behind the scenes of what was going on with Cassie, Kid Cudi, and Sean Combs. Ash.
Yeah, I love that last moment where the judge is like, yeah, that didn't happen yet, so cut it out. You know, the judge wanted to basically tell the defense, you can't call for a mistrial for something you think is about to happen. And I think the thing that was about to happen was that the defense was worried that Kid Cudi would say, I'm scared about my safety because he's ordered 2 murders before, or something along those lines. So they were able to stop
something like that
for anybody in the courtroom. Yeah, you know, no damage done. So mistrial, far from it. Okay, there was quite a story from a makeup artist. What'd she say?
So we had a makeup artist that worked with both Sean Combs and Cassie Ventura in the early 2000s. And she talked about doing a lot of photo shoots, going on video shoots for many projects. But one thing that she talked about was going to a party at Prince's house, the artist formerly known as Prince. And they were at a party there, her and Cassie, and she described her as like her little sister. They were really close. They leave the party and they go to a hotel. And then all of a sudden, Sean Combs bursts in. He's very angry. And he goes into the bedroom, and she's kind of in the living room area of this hotel, laying on a couch, and she hears Combs and Cassie fighting, and it's very loud, and he's very angry sounding. She didn't see anything, but after he left, she said that Cassie, she went into the room, and Cassie had a big welt on her eye, her lip was busted, and she had knots all over her head, like big bumps, like she had been beaten. And so she took her out of the hotel, packed her up, and said, let's get out of here. Took her to her own apartment, her own place in L.A., and was asked, did you call the police? What happened? She said, I was afraid for my life. I was not going to call the police. Instead, she called a friend of hers who was a doctor to come over and examine Cassie to make sure she didn't have a concussion. At one point, there was a call to a lawyer, not sure where that went, but she described a very fearful night in Hollywood that she said made her fear for her life.
Well, maybe that's not so much RICO, but it sure does corroborate the fact pattern of coercion and fear among people, and a pattern of all the beatings. And that's certainly been a repeated theme throughout a lot of the alleged RICO crimes. So there's this makeup artist. I only have 10 seconds left, but I just wanted to mention that the hotel employee who said that apparently there were internal notes on Sean Combs's room bookings that often this guest spills baby oil all over the place. We need air fresheners. There's candle wax, and we got to take the room out of circulation for a deep cleaning afterwards. And, you know, make sure to get $1,000, you know, down payment for cleanup. That was quite a moment as well. Laura, great job in there. Thank you so much for this. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Talk soon.
All right, I'm joined now by defense attorney and former prosecutor Mark Eiglarsha. I always love talking to you about this. Mark, it's amazing how much angry debating is going on between lawyers, legal analysts, people who are watching the trial, reporters, as to, yeah, all of this shows that Sean Combs is a terrible guy, but it doesn't amount to RICO. I am one of the people who argues and debates that a lot of this shows RICO. And, you know, Kid Cudi seemed to have a lot of stories that matched up with the predicate acts to RICO. Did you agree or disagree?
Well, it helped. But here was my feeling on Kid Cudi. He proved with 100% certainty, beyond all shadow of a doubt, that Diddy may have committed arson. Probably, maybe committed arson. That's not enough. In fact, there's a reason why no one was ever arrested for that crime. No one was ever prosecuted. There's no direct evidence at all linking Sean Combs. And that's a problem. It's enough for the court of public opinion, but it's not enough for a court of law where proof beyond a reasonable doubt is required. Do we think he did it? Heck yes, we think he did it. But I don't know if that's enough to prove arson as one of those crimes that they've alleged was part of his RICO criminal enterprise.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Apart from the fact that he threatened to do it before it was actually done, he didn't. There's no evidence that he used a staff member or anyone in his enterprise to do that either. I was more interested in the break-in and an assistant named Capricorn Clark, who apparently Kid Cudi said screamed to him on the phone, I was forced into a car and forced to drive with Diddy to your home where I am parked right now. And he is in there in your home right now. To me, that screamed with a receipt almost of forced labor and coercive behavior within your enterprise to commit a crime.
Yeah, it's possible. It's not enough to show he's a really bad guy. It is definitely not enough to show that he is an abuser, which they have proven beyond all doubt. They must show these crimes. I'll tell you, we got a lot of drug testimony today, and that was one of the crimes that was alleged. So you got that. You got potentially this arson where, again, you know, the difference between OJ, for example, is most jurors still thought he was a good guy for the most part. He was the guy running through the airport. You know, people gave him the benefit of the doubt. The minute they showed the video with him treating Cassie like his own piñata, they immediately shifted. There was no presumption of innocence. They hated this guy, and every day we're getting more reasons to hate him. So in a close call, they're going to err on the side of the government. So believing it was him might be enough to prove arson.
I'm with you. I absolutely am with you. I think that their stomachs are turning regularly, and that is making them angry at the man who's sitting in front of them with all these allegations against him swirling. Last one, this assistant, George Kaplan, I thought was another bunch of receipts for RICO. He said he was actually sent out on drug runs with cash to go get drugs for Diddy, and he peeked inside the bag and said it was MDMA. Not only that, he was asked to go buy witch hazel to go fix Cassie's face with all the swelling from the beatings that he'd witnessed. And so to me, that was, again, a staffer who's meant to be... Oh, and by the way, the witch hazel was supposed to be purchased on the company credit card. So once again, these are moments where I say, here's a Tony Soprano guy using his enterprise and his staff members to either facilitate or cover up the crimes that are being committed within that enterprise.
I love to disagree with you, but I can't. On this point, I cannot, Ashleigh. I believe that they're starting to shape, and again, don't judge the case now. You know, it's like judging a building when they put blocks together, bricks together. It's not done. You know, maybe there is more direct evidence about the arson, but at a minimum, if this guy's believed, we know he was doing the work of the Al Capone of the lube world. He was buying the drugs. He was cleaning up the room. It puts Diddy at the top and him as one of the co-conspirators in the RICO.
I really hope that TMZ picks up that headline, Al Capone of the lube world, because I don't think I've heard anyone put it better. Real quickly, when the defense actually does, and I've got like 10 seconds, but when the defense does begin its case, what do you do? Like, what do you do?
You argue that this wasn't rape, it was regret. You argue it wasn't against her will. She stuck in there. She wanted this. And yes, there were times that she was beaten and it was bad, but she stuck around. It was consent. That's what the defense will have to hammer.
Oh, it's going to be an uphill climb. You got to come back. Thanks, Mark.
My pleasure. Thank you, my friend.
Love, love, love having Mark Eiglarsh on the air. Okay, coming up, what has 10 legs, is really hard to find, and is worth $100,000? Do you give up? Because police in New Orleans haven't given up, nor have the FBI and the U.S. Marshals, and they won't give up anytime soon. But the remaining 5 fugitives out there from last week's jailbreak, they're not making the job easier. After a break, we'll tell you where the manhunt stands, and we'll get a look at, from the inside, what jailbreakers do to stay gone. Hey, I got some breaking news just as we're coming on the air. It turns out yet another person has been arrested. This would make 4 for allegedly helping those 10 inmates escape from the New Orleans jail last Friday. The latest one, police say, is 59-year-old Connie Whedon of Slidell, Louisiana. They say she provided money to one of the inmates. The inmate up on the top shelf there named Jermaine Donald. By the way, he and 4 others among the original group of 10 are still on the loose. So Donald is on the up shelf where they're still on the run. The other 5 were all caught and thrown back in the hoosegow. Not this hoosegow, though. This one's too porous. Clearly, it's easy to bust out of this one. The bounty on these guys is worth a combined $100,000. So that's a good side hustle, if you ask me. My next guest has seen this rodeo from every side. Larry Levine is a former prison inmate who went on to found and direct Wall Street Prison Consultants, and he also wrote a book called Prison Politics 101, Mastering the Art of Survival. Larry, we've got this great breaking news. I'd love you to comment on this. We've got another person, number 4, hauled in for aiding and abetting after the fact. Do you think there are a lot more people who are going to be arrested for helping?
Well, generally on an escape like this, there's like the ringleader, 2 or 3 people helping out. The other ones were just people of opportunity. If I was planning an escape like this, remember, I used to plan crimes. I helped people when I was on the inside that wanted to escape. I give them guidance and advice. Bring as many people as you want. Make this like a party, because then when law enforcement is looking for people, you have a better chance of blending into the population because they're busy looking for everybody. So this was set up ahead of time. Obviously, these guys had telephones and such. So right now, the investigators are combing the telephone records, matching people's calls up, names with the inmates. So obviously, they're involved and provided help. And I wouldn't be surprised if more people were out there that they're going to locate more people that helped out.
It's not James Bond level criminal planning either, is it? I mean, a lot of these people are just using phones and using texts and emails and all sorts of things that are so easily traceable. Is it getting easier and easier to find those who are supporting escapees?
Well, with technology, let's break it down. When you have an inmate account to make telephone calls, a lot of times you have to put like a whole list of numbers into the system. And you've got to put the name of the individual in the system so they know. They know that that phone number is tied to this inmate. So then when they check the cell phones and they'll find them, they'll get something will lead them to the CDRs, the call detail reports. They'll just go down the list. They'll look at the list and say, well, gee, this phone number corresponds with this inmate. Let's zoom in on this person. So it's getting much easier. And a lot of institutions are putting in equipment that will actually block cellular traffic. It'll block the cell phones, but then it becomes a problem for the staff because their cell phones don't work. So there's really no answer. But yeah, there's a problem throughout the federal state system with cell phones, not generally the county, but for sure in the state and federal systems. And it's like the maintenance guy. It was obviously paid off. I don't believe he's innocent. You pay a staff member enough money, they'll bring you phones in. They'll bring you drugs in. They'll perform sexual acts for you. These people they're not really well trained and they're low paid, and they can be compromised real easy.
Let's talk about on the outside, once they get out, because now it's been a week and 5 of these guys have eluded capture. The other 5 were caught within 10 miles, and I couldn't believe it. I thought, 10 miles, for heaven's sake, you could have done that in less than a day. What are they doing, those top shelf 5? What are they doing to stay hidden?
Okay, we don't know the dynamics of this escape. Maybe they called the other guys. Maybe they didn't even know they were going to escape. Best thing to do when you escape is you don't hang out with other people you escaped with. You split up. I mean, gee, you may as well hold a sign that says 3 escaped inmates in front of you. You know who they're looking for. So I was locked up with a guy who did escape. There was a manhunt out for him. He went and he found a security guard uniform hanging in a backyard on a clothesline. He went to a shopping center. He put the uniform on. It was kind of like a closed shopping center, and he acted like a security guard. And the cops would come by and they would wave at him. I don't think these other guys are near New Orleans anymore. I really don't. They have a 7-day lead time. They had people that were helping them out. People gave them money. They probably have some firearms. And a couple of them, I believe, are in there for murder. And they really have nothing to lose because they're looking for a lot of time. Probably stole a car. New Orleans is on the water. Maybe they're hiding out in a boat. Possibly, maybe the alligators got them in the swamp or something. But I don't believe they're anywhere near New Orleans. They've had 7 days to go on the run, and they're gone, or they would have found them already.
Okay, I only have like 10 seconds left, but what are the odds that one or all of the remaining 5 are going to be caught?
Yeah, they'll catch some of them. I mean, $10,000 is not it's not a big reward amount. The current
20.
administration, I mean, they cut funds everywhere. Obviously, they cut money to the reward fund, but when the dollar amount
Yeah, but it's 20.
goes up
It's
high
20
enough,
each.
no, I heard it. Okay, 20 each still. You see FBI wanted posters that are $50,000, $100,000. That's federal money they're putting up. Where is the state of Louisiana putting money up, or the county? It's not a lot of money really in today's economy to turn people in. You watch that money go up. Okay, FBI, ATF, Crime Stoppers, that's 15,000. That's not 20,000. Somebody's math
No, there's
is wrong
10,
here.
10, 5, and 5. Yeah, the 20's at the top, then 10,000 FBI, 10,000 ATF.
Okay, you're right.
Your math is wrong. And my time is running out. I got to go. I got to go. But Larry, I'm going to have you back.
They need to increase that reward amount, and somebody's going to run their mouth and come forward.
Well, I'm going to call you as we continue to follow the story, and certainly when the other ones are caught, too. Larry, thank you. Always appreciate it.
Sure thing, Ash. Glad to be with you.
You too. Okay, coming up, you think you can spot a lie a mile away? Because I used to think I could until I met this lady.
I wish I could just say, I don't remember getting in the car.
That's Sherri Papini, whose disappearance and kidnapping had the whole country gobsmacked a few years back, but it all turned out to be a lie. Every bit of it, start to finish. Now, Sherri's telling her side of the story in a brand new docuseries, and this time she swears up and down she's not lying. I've got some clips, and I've got one angry Perez Hilton who's going to bring the fire when we come back. "2016 was a pretty big year for news, remember? But even then, the case of a young wife and mother from California who'd gone out for an afternoon jog and suddenly disappeared, that was big news. Her name was Sherri Papini, and you may well remember the case. Missing persons posters went up everywhere. The FBI sent out alerts, and the tearful husband was on a round-the-clock loop on cable news for more than 3 weeks. But then a bizarre twist that just juiced the case. Sherri mysteriously resurfaced. She turned up on the side of a highway 150 miles away from home. Her hair had been chopped off. Her hands and feet were zip-tied. She was chained. She'd been beaten, and her back had been branded. It was crazy. She told the whole world that she'd been kidnapped by 2 Hispanic women, and she described them in such detail that police could recreate and distribute composite sketches. How convenient. But fast forward a couple of years, and police suddenly get a very different idea of just how Sherri Papini actually went missing. And Papini eventually had to cop to it, that the kidnap story was absolute bullshit. She was not abducted. There were no Hispanic women who brutalized her. She actually ran off from her husband and kids so that she could cheat with an old boyfriend. And when things with that boyfriend went south, she made up another bullcrap kidnapping story and then tried to go back to her old life. Papini spent more than a year in federal prison for those lies. But now she's out, and she's talking. A new 4-part docuseries is about to start streaming. And according to Sherri Papini, it lays out what really happened. Here's a little soupçon.
When she got arrested, my first reaction was just like, oh, she's now the enemy.
Whatever you do from now on, you better have evidence, because nobody's going to believe you.
There are 2 sides to every story.
The whole country turned against her.
She's a convicted liar. I mean, a leopard doesn't change his spots.
So tell me why we should believe you now. I'm willing to do whatever it takes.
This is the moment that changed everything.
Were you free to leave at any time without fear of violence?
If this is all true, then this is the desperate cries of somebody saying, I need to be heard.
I'm Sherri Papini. I was abducted and I was tortured, and the FBI said I made it all up.
No, you said you made it all up. You admitted it. But Sherri's got this brand new story, and it's this. Yes, she was kidnapped by not random Hispanic women. Instead, she says it was the boyfriend with whom she was cheating on her husband. You should also know that that man was never charged, that he passed a polygraph test, and that he says Sherri Papini is as big a liar now as she ever was before. I am joined now by celebrity blogger and columnist Perez Hilton, who's got a thing or two to say about Sherri Papini. I call this episode Perez Unleashed. Okay, go for it.
I'm just tired of what I see a new trend. We saw it first with Gypsy Rose Blanchard. She left prison after spending time for her involvement in the murder of her mother, and then is a reality TV star. The Menendez brothers, if or when they're released, perhaps soon, the same will happen for them. That woman last year, Hannah Kobayashi, who went missing, also was allegedly involved in immigration fraud. A year from now, I predict she'll get her own program, telling the truth then. I just think her motives are to be more known, to get attention, and possibly to turn herself into a celebrity, I think. Because if she cared about the truth, and if this is the truth, why didn't she say this before pleading guilty and spending time locked up?
Yeah, on a federal crime at that. Do you or anybody else, do we know if she was paid? Because I cannot imagine why she would put herself out there in this way to start all the haters and get them all fired up again.
You know, I've done a lot of documentaries like this, and they might be able to get away by saying we don't pay subjects to be in our documentaries. However, that's not to say that she probably didn't receive some payment, because you can charge the network a licensing fee to use archival footage of yours, pictures or video. You can also charge the network a licensing, a location fee to film at your place. So sure, you didn't get paid to appear, but you still made money for this project.
Yeah, some licensing fees are higher than others, that's for sure. Okay, I want to play this clip real quickly. This is where Sherri Papini is kind of put to the test by the producers. I think they're asking her to recreate getting in the car, because that's the kidnapping, right? That she now says wasn't, it was the boyfriend. It wasn't the Hispanic ladies, but she was kidnapped. So let's just play that. Take a look.
I don't want to have to do the reenactments.
Like, I wish I could just say, I don't remember getting in the car. And you're trying to get there, and you're trying to get to this moment where I can't tell you. I can't tell you.
I have to provide more evidence, and I have to support more, and I have to back up more because of what I did.
All right. What about the husband and the ex? What are they saying about all these new stories?
You know, the husband has said a lot himself. He had his own docu-special that came out last year. So if you're curious to hear what his takes are, watch that. I don't think he has yet responded to this latest development. But as you mentioned, the ex-boyfriend has. And interestingly enough, Sherri's parents are on this program as well. And in the past, the mother has said that my daughter, Sherri Papini, made up false allegations against me, claiming that she was abusing her daughter, which is not true, according to the mom. Also, other ex-boyfriends of Sherri have said that she has historically been a pathological liar. So, oh, wow, she's taking a lie detector test now, which is easily, cheated. I don't take much weight in that. And she claims to not remember how she was kidnapped or the very long drive from Redding, California to Costa Mesa. That's from Northern California to Orange County. She conveniently forgot that an 8-hour drive, 6-hour drive. I don't know how long, very long.
Yeah. They're like these liars. They're like Jodi Arias and Casey Anthony. They are just exquisite. Perez, I always love having you on. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
The 4-part docuseries is called Sherri Papini, Caught in the Lie, and it starts streaming on Investigation Discovery and HBO Max next week. And still to come on this program, one of the most infamous names and cases of the 20th century, Patty Hearst. She was a publishing heiress and was kidnapped by a homegrown left-wing terror group and then decided to become one of them. The Fed said she did that voluntarily. She says she was brainwashed by force. But even if you followed the story in real time, there's one part you may have forgotten. When hundreds of police officers descended on the group's safe house in a Waco-like siege. We've tracked down the footage for our True Crime Rewind, and it's next. You don't have to be my age to know the name Patty Hearst, but if you remember the 70s, she is definitely part of your history. Back in the day when there were 3 nightly news programs on the air and cable news hadn't yet been born, let alone the internet, the story of a young heiress kidnapping was almost as big as Vietnam. She had been taken by a left-wing terror group called the Symbionese Liberation Army. And in 1974, 2 months after Patty was kidnapped, the SLA released an audio recording in which Patty could be heard declaring that she had joined the group and had taken on the name Tanya. Days after that, Tanya popped up on the San Francisco bank's security camera alongside her captors, and she was holding a rifle and taking part in a robbery. In May of that year, 51 years ago this month, the LAPD got a tip that the SLA was holed up in a house in South Los Angeles. And so 500 officers descended on that house and fired 5,000 rounds into the house. The Associated Press was on the scene and they filed this gripping report.
5 suspected members of the Symbionese Liberation Army are dead following the bloodiest and most massive gun battle in the history of Los Angeles. Hundreds of police and FBI agents surrounded this small house on East 54th Street in the south central area of the city. Shortly before 6 p.m., gunfire erupted. For more than an hour, thousands of rounds of automatic weapons and small gunfire were exchanged between police and the suspects inside the house. 6 tear gas assaults were made in an attempt to flush out the fugitives, until finally, houses on either side, as well as the pink wood and stucco fortress, caught fire. A fire believed to have been started by an exploding gas canister. Coming out. Some of the bodies were burned beyond recognition and awaited final positive identification following coroner's autopsies. It was an incredible, almost unbelievable ending to the most intensive manhunt of recent years. And yet, it was viewed as it happened by millions watching on national television. This is Pete Miller in Los Angeles.
Awesome, isn't it? The extreme response was criticized by many, including Patty's father, Randolph Hearst, who said the raid turned, quote, dingbats into martyrs. 6 SLA members were killed in the raid, including the group's leader, Donald DeFries. And as it turned out, Patty Hearst wasn't even there. And Patty wasn't caught until September of 1975, more than a year after she was kidnapped. During the investigation, Patty described to the police that she'd been raped and that she'd been brainwashed while in captivity. Still, she stood trial for that bank robbery, and she was convicted in 1976 and sentenced to 7 years in prison. 3 years later, in 1979, President Carter commuted her sentence to the 22 months that she'd already served. And then President Clinton pardoned Patty Hearst outright in 2001. Of all the road rage that we have brought you on this show, tonight we have a first. Road rage with a hatchet. And to answer your question, yes, it was just as bad as it sounds, and it happened last week in Boston, and yes, I have the video. It is next. There are a couple of ways that you can avoid road rage. Both parties can see the error of their ways and apologize and bury the hatchet. That's the preferred way. Or one of the drivers can actually bury the hatchet right into the other guy's car, which is exactly what happened in Boston last Friday night. Police say we got a guy named Andrew Oprian, 27 years old. Here he is, smashing up a Toyota Prius belonging to the victim of his rage. The Prius driver says Oprian's pickup truck came barreling up behind him at breakneck speed and forced him to crash. After that, the Prius driver says he got out and ran for his life. But cops say Andrew Oprian chased him down the sidewalk wielding, you guessed it, the hatchet. When he got tired of chasing, police say he turned around and went back to the Prius and went to town. Tonight, Andrew Oprian is facing charges of assault with a dangerous weapon and willful and malicious destruction of property. And just as soon as the police can actually find Andrew Oprian, I am guessing that they will arrest him. So Boston, if you're out there, keep your eyes peeled, but don't get close. Thanks, everyone, for being here tonight. Check out my podcast, Drop Dead Serious. I always love hearing your comments. We got an update on Diddy every single day and Karen Reed. Cuomo's next.